Sims Nation, welcome to another edition of the Positively Pat Sims Show. I am your host, Positively Pat Sims, and we are finally here for part 2 of our pro wrestling spotlight of DDP Diamond Dallas Page. And for those of you guys who missed part 1, here's what we covered before we get into part 2 here. We covered, of course, Dallas's start in pro wrestling. We've covered his appearance at WrestleMania 6, driving the pink Cadillac, gotten into the manager era in the AWA. We've got WCW, the Diamond Mine. We've got his switch from becoming a manager to becoming a pro wrestler, and the reinvention of himself. We've got his first major gold, the WCW Television Championship, the DDP versus the NWO, and the birth of the People's Champion. We've got his Randy Savage feud, the United States Champion and his touches with the main event, Goldberg versus DDP at Halloween Havoc 1998, and then becoming world champion in WCW, a 3-time WCW world champion. So on today's show, we're going to pick up right there and move into the next segment of Dallas's career as we move forward through the end of WCW into his questionable time in WWE. We've also got his 2017 Hall of Fame, and of course, we're going to be talking about what DDP did after pro wrestling with the DDPY program. So let's kick this thing off here. I want to welcome my special guest today. Starting off first, we've got a man who is basically here mainly to talk about the latter part of Dallas' career, but I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about all of it. He is a great human being, and he is a very inspirational man. I give you the one and only George Fenmore. Good morning, George.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? Are you ready to feel the pain?
What are we, George?
Ah!
There you go. What's up, Walter Johnson? Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining in. All right, and our next special guest, coming all the way from NorCal. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the Diamond Standard. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the one and only Doc Haywood. Good morning, Doc.
Well, if you don't know who I am at this point, raise your hand and then slap yourself because you haven't been watching the Positively Pat Sims Show. Great to be here talking about the man over my court.
The other way. There you go.
I don't know how to work. There he is, Diamond Dallas Page, the people's champ. Although we're kind of past that run right now, talking about the end of WCW, WWE, and DDPY. Love to talk about it.
All right. Sounds good. And ladies and gentlemen, our third guest for today, he is a dear, close personal friend of mine. He is a fellow WANT host and DJ. I give to you Benny the Jet Scala. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
All right. So, guys, before we get rolling here, Walter, you met DDP in WCW, Walter? Is that what you're saying? If so, that's cool. I didn't meet DDP till way long after that. Before we get started, I want to say a big shout out and a big thank you to all of our listeners this morning over on WANT. For those of you that don't know, WANT 24/7. You want it, we got it. Music, shows, comedy, whatever you need, whatever you want, WANT has it. And you can listen by going to WANTradio.com. You can tell your Alexa to play it, or you can just head on over and grab the Live 365 app and check out WANT anywhere, anytime. And for those of you joining us on YouTube, Thank you so much. Make sure you give us a shout out in the live chat. Let us know you're here so we can say hello. And thank you for being a part of the Positively Pat Sims show. All right. So, guys, moving on through DDP's career, DDP, after becoming a world champion, also became a WCW World Tag Team Champion. Cage Match actually lists tag title reigns with Bam Bam Bigelow, with the triad combination involving Bigelow and Chris Kanyon. And then later with Kevin Nash as the insiders. WWE's DDP profile lists him as a 4-time WCW World Tag Team Champion. So the Jersey Triad, let's start with that. It was a different flavor for DDP. Chris Kanyon, Bam Bam Bigelow helped create a tough and entertaining unit, in my opinion. So I want to hear your thoughts on the Jersey Triad. Benny, you're on the screen here. Let's start with you. What did you think of Dallas's time in the Jersey Triad?
I liked it. I can't say I don't like it, but, quite a step down after winning a couple of world championships. I mean, Dallas is one of these people, these rare people that always makes the most with whatever he's given. And I think, this wasn't the best gimmick, and there were a lot of not so good gimmicks in WCW at this time, by this time. But I think, I really think it was kind of a step down. But again, he made the most of it.
All right. How about you, George? What do you think?
I agree with Benny. We're getting to the point where we're at or close to the point where Vince Russo is starting to get involved, and that explains just about everything. All the wrestlers that were over a certain age, he basically would stop pushing, and he would make it so Dallas was able to turn no matter what you give him into gold. That's just how Dallas. He does that with everything, right? So, he took a ruptured L4 and L5, and look what he made out of it, right? So, he could turn, everything to gold.
Right.
I love the stuff with Bam Bam. I love the stuff with Chris Kanyon. God rest his soul. But yeah, I have nothing else to add to what Benny added.
All right. How about you, Doc?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on what George said. This was kind of the Vince Russo era of WCW, so I've kind of started pulling away from WCW's product. I caught the New Jersey Triad a little bit. This was kind of around Dallas's heel era, which the best part of that was his appearance in Ready to Rumble as kind of the heavy of that movie.
Right.
But his influence on Kanyon was really good because for NorCal, especially where I'm from in Chico, Kanyon had a big influence on Brian Cage, who came out of Chico, came out of PCW. So, there's a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon there for old Doc Haywood and Chico with the New Jersey Triad there.
So I always felt the Triad was an odd trio, only because I felt like if you're going to put Dallas in a trio like that, he needs to stand out as the established veteran, right? And to me, and this might just be me, to me, Bam Bam felt a little out of place there. Like, what are we trying to do with Bam Bam? He's not a young up-and-comer like Chris Kanyon could be considered as. I mean, Bam Bam was around in, the first Survivor Series. He's been around. I kind of felt like it was an opportunity to build 2 young stars with 1 main event star. It just felt a little like it was just okay, yeah, like we said, it's just kind of let's throw darts at the board and see which ones it lands on, and then we'll just go from there. And it's what do all 3 have in common? Oh, well, we'll call them that, right?
Well, that shows the weaknesses that Vince Russo had, especially at that time, in his pro wrestling storytelling. He knew drama. He knew the Jerry Springer type stuff, but he didn't understand pro wrestling and the idea of this guy will help make this guy, or this guy can help make a couple guys.
Right.
Agreed.
100%
agree.
Now,
but he nailed it with Judy Bagwell on a skid.
oh,
He definitely aced that one.
the Viagra on a pole match.
That too, yeah.
And they put a lot of stuff on poles. I guess Vince really had a thing for poles. They had the
He had
pinata.
an affinity for poles, yes.
They even put the World Heavyweight Championship in a box, like on a pole. And then it fell out. But
like I love Will Russo, which is Vince Russo's son. He used to work for DDPY, and he did my videos and stuff. But I love him to pieces. But his father, oh my god.
And we could probably do a whole spotlight on Vince Russo at some point. But moving on from the Jersey Triad, we had the Insiders, Kevin Nash and DDP, and again, very kind of a weird pairing. In for me, like it just there seemed to be no rhyme or reason to it. It was just like, boom, here it is, and it's almost like this is a sign that we're getting near the end of WCW. You know what I mean? George, what are your thoughts or memories about the Insiders? I know Kevin Nash and Dallas are friends, and that probably helped, but what are your thoughts on that?
From what I can vaguely remember, because also I was doing the same thing. I started pulling away a little bit at this point. I also was in the middle of a move from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, and so me catching a Nitro sometimes was flaky at best.
Right.
But I was still catching Ross. Just Nitro was flaky. Man, I don't know. I love them together. That they were a good team, but I felt like what are we doing here, right? Like the whole time I was watching it, like, well, I wasn't as in depth and mature enough, then because I was, like 17, 18.
Right.
I'm still looking at it. The fact is, like, okay, two of my favorite wrestlers are together, awesome, but what are we, like, even then I could realize that we weren't doing anything with them. Like, we weren't getting anywhere. It was just
doing stuff for stuff's sake, right?
Right, because we have you under contract, we got to use you.
Right.
Yeah.
Doc, how about you? What do you think?
An entirely forgettable era of pro wrestling with WCW. At this point, people had stopped taping one and tuning into the other and then watching the other later, whether you were a WCW or a WWE guy. Most of the wrestling world and the fans had switched over and were watching WWE's product, WWF at the time. The Attitude Era in full swing and at the height of its powers. So, as much as I love DDP, as much as I enjoy Kevin Nash, WCW's product just was not up to snuff.
Yes, you're absolutely. Sorry, I was getting something here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Benny, your thoughts on the Insiders? Do you remember this tag team at all? I only remember one thing, and it was like a botched power bomb that Dallas had to literally go over and assist with. But Benny, what do you remember from this?
Yeah, to be very honest, by now I had stopped watching. I stopped watching. I was solely WWE, and then after Katie Vick, I stopped watching WWE for a couple of years as well. So this was kind of the period where I didn't watch a ton of wrestling. Right. But no, they were obviously circling the drain. I will say that DDP was, to me, like the last couple of years of WCW, he was one of the MVPs. I mean, if anybody made it watchable, it would have been him.
Right. And poor Dallas, we talk about he's a team guy. When he's told, this is what we need from you, this is what you can always trust that Dallas is going to go out there and he's going to do his best to make it work. Dallas gets saddled with celebrities. All right, we talked about this on the part 1. He gets Karl Malone. That's great because you got an athlete in there. It's a guy you can work with who understands what being a pro athlete is all about. Then he gets Jay Leno. And it's one of those just like, why? What are we doing here? And poor Dallas is saddled with this, and it's his job to make this something that's watchable. Basically it came down to him and Hogan making sure this was something that was right. And then Hogan takes an armbar from Jay Leno, and, well, it's no longer watchable for me from Hogan. And then we get Dallas and the saga that is David Arquette. And this is an honest question I have for you guys. Doc, I want to start with you. Did the whole David Arquette debacle in WCW, did that have any kind of negative effects or repercussions on Dallas because he was a major part of that whole storyline?
Yeah, no. I mean, as a fan, David Arquette winning the belt, Dallas being involved in that, absolute nonsense.
Right.
I mean, good did come out of it. Booker T credits David Arquette as one of the guys who kind of helped get him noticed as being a contender for the gold in WCW. I will say that I'm one of the few people who enjoys the Ready to Rumble movie for.
We're gonna
what
get
it
there.
is.
We're gonna get there. Trust me.
But yeah, putting the belt on David Arquette, it put eyes on the company. It put eyes on Diamond Dallas Page, but the wrong kind of eyes.
Right.
If you're gonna put a belt on a celebrity, you want to make sure that it's someone that's believable, like Logan Paul, maybe, where like, oh, okay, this guy can go. But David Arquette at the time, complete joke. Some of the ring entrances made it look like he was treating pro wrestling as a joke, and I think that's going to negatively affect the people who are surrounding it. So yeah, you look at Dallas in that storyline, and you're like, bro, you got to say no. At a certain point, you got to say no, and unfortunately, Dallas doesn't learn that lesson for a while.
Right? Yeah, we're not even to the worst part where he doesn't say no yet. But Benny, talk to me about your thoughts about the whole David Arquette thing and how that might have affected Dallas and his career trajectory going forward.
Well, I mean, it was awful, of course,
right?
But I don't really think, I don't think there's any guilt by association. I think it reflected more on the product and the booking,
sure,
as opposed to Dallas.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the only reason I asked is because a lot of people they look at who are the players surrounding it, right? Like, for some reason, when we talk about Jay Leno, that Dallas is somehow to blame for him even being there in the first place. Or when we talk about David Arquette, because of the way the storyline goes, it's almost like Dallas is almost responsible. We're not giving Dallas any blame for this, but there's probably a large portion of fans who, when David Arquette won the title, probably would have loved for Dallas to have just start beating the living crap out of him when it happened instead of celebrating with him. And a lot of people thought it probably got turned off by watching Dallas celebrate. That's just how fans are. And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Oh my God, dog. Oh, I think my dog ate like every piece of bean in the world. Go away. You are stinky. Whoo! You know it's bad when the whole show comes to a stop. Wow.
Smelled
Very
it
nice
over
to have
up
to
here
share.
in NorCal.
Oh man, I'm like I have tears. My dog Dutch ovened me live on the air. All right, George, take over while I try to compose myself.
Oh wow. So I don't think I agree with Benny and Doc. I don't think Dallas is nailed with any negative thing from our Arquette. Um, I do feel like when Arquette won the title as a kid, I thought it was kind of cool, but I expected him to drop it immediately. It didn't happen right away. I expected, just be like, oh yeah, this guy just won it. Woo, yeah, fans can do this, or if you put the hard work in and you have a pro wrestler help you, you can do it, right? Like that's basically kind of
Right.
what happens. It was kind of the same thing of like when Vince won his world title. He didn't technically win it. Austin did. It's all the work, right? But that's the record books aren't ever gonna. People now don't know that. They just know Vince was world champion. They don't know that Austin and did all the work there. So at the end of the day, I don't think Dallas has anything negative come from this from his side. But it just shows again the weak booking of WCW at the time and where it was headed.
Right. And obviously today, I don't think nobody holds anything against Dallas for that today. I was more thinking in the moment what that might have done for him in the moment.
Even in the moment, I don't think fans blamed him. I think they still, because I think even though they weren't as smart as they are now, I think a lot of them were still blaming Vince Russo.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing with David Arquette came about because WCW got into the movie making business. And I always remember Beyond the Mat, Vince was talking about what they're all about at WWF at the time, and it's like, we're about making movies, right? And the closest they got to a wrestling movie was No Holds Barred with old Hulk Hogan, but WCW went all in with an actual movie about whatever the hell wrestling they're trying to present, because the movie never seems to know what pro wrestling is and how it wants to present it. Like half the time it's presenting wrestling as a show, right? That's got predetermined outcomes and they're calling spots in the matches. And then the other half of the movie, they're treating it like everything is absolutely real, right? Like within a week, I guess, of losing the title, you've got Oliver Platt's character, the King. He's already destitute and in a trailer. It's one of those movies that's so bad that I love it. And if you've never watched it, you've got to see it, and don't skimp on it. Just get through it, get through the whole thing, and stick around for the outtakes at the end. The compilation of Oliver Platt taking nut shots at the end is absolutely hilarious. The sounds he makes. But Benny, your memories about Ready to Rumble, and just tell me about what you thought of the movie in general, and then what you got out of that from Dallas's performance in that film.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, there. Okay. All right. I saw it once, and it was a long time ago. I probably should watch it again.
You should.
Yeah. Don't remember a lot of the specifics. I do remember that, it's like, wow, DDP, and I thought he did a pretty good job in the movie. It's like, this guy, not really known as an actor, and I really thought he did quite well.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember thinking, like, I want to see that version of Dallas. Like, I want to see the heel Dallas. I just remember that, just feeling like I thought he was such a good heel in that movie. George, give me your thoughts on Ready to Rumble and what you thought of Dallas's character in that movie.
I can't, because that's one movie I've never seen.
You've never seen this?
Nope.
That is almost sacrilege.
When it came out, again, I was in the middle move down here. I wanted to see it, and then that's when my mom started getting sick, and well, everything like that took a back burner, and then I've never gotten around to it since. I've never thought about it actually.
Now the downside is I don't even know if it's available on a streaming platform. I think if you're gonna watch it, you have to, like, if it's on anything, it might be Tubi.
I'll look for it. I'll look for it.
Yeah,
You know, but
you gotta
I mean,
check it out.
I know some bits just heard about it over the years, but I've never actually sat down and watched it because again, my mom took precedent at that time. So
Yeah, I think that's another spotlight show we need to do is just Ready to Rumble. I mean, Doc, tell me right now, is this a underrated masterpiece? Or is this just one of those films that it's just, again, like I said, it's just so bad that that makes it entertaining?
It's so bad it's good. It's one of those just total cheeseball movies. But I have a lot of fond memories of this movie. This is when I was working with a lot of wrestling fans, and me and one of my friends went to go see this opening day.
Yep.
There was like 4 people in the theater, and my friend almost died. Literally died laughing. She choked on a piece of popcorn in one of the opening scenes where David Arquette has his finger up his butt to make the Slurpee smell rotten. He's giving it to the clerk at 7-Eleven, and the guy's like, "Oh, how did you drink most of this?" And he's like, "Well, I struggled through it because most of the butt fruit settled at the bottom."
Right.
She starts choking on popcorn, and so we're in the perfect place to enjoy this movie. We might have had I was working a night shift back in my pleb days, so we might have had a few adult beverages before we went to see this movie. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There is, like you were saying, there's this kind of tension between, is wrestling a work? Is it a shoot? And they kind of play both sides of it. Dallas does a great job as the main heel. And as I said, I wasn't watching a lot of WCW at this time, so I'd never seen him as a heel before. And I wish they would have booked him in WCW a little more when they booked him as a heel, like they did in this movie, but they didn't, because I think his character is kind of the attack dog for the promoter. Was a really good idea for the character. Yeah, just it's a fun movie. It kind of pokes fun at wrestling fans who, the it's still real to me guys.
Yeah.
I think Martin Landau, classic actor, does a great job as this kind of Gene LaBelle character.
Yeah.
Sal Baldini, do you want to wrestle? Really enjoyed him. Sting has this very interesting presence, kind of a throwback to the original kind of idea with the Crow Sting, where he's very mysterious and doesn't talk a lot. Goldberg comes in as this kind of, is he going to be on the side of the Angels or on the side of the heel? So there are some good things to say about this. I think the most unbelievable bit of the movie is Oliver Platt as Jimmy the King.
Right.
Him as the world champion. It's kind of like, come on, guys. I can suspend a lot of disbelief, but this guy as the champ in a major pro wrestling organization, he could definitely pull it off with some indie companies, but not WCW.
Yeah, it was. Well, fun fact, guys, for those of you who haven't seen it, so they did a pretty decent job of hiding it, but Oliver Platt's wrestling stunt double was Chris Kanyon. So whenever you see him,
that's incredible.
Yeah. Whenever you see him taking big bumps, I think at one point he goes through the table, and that's Chris Kanyon taking those shots. So big props to Chris Kanyon. All right, guys. So if you haven't been convinced that you have to see Ready to Rumble at least once, I don't know what to tell you. My buddy Greg and I, we used to watch. We had movies that we would watch before big thing. Like every time we had a game for baseball, we would watch Major League. Like no kidding. We would. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But then on there were like once a month, I think we would always sit down over at his place and we would watch Ready to Rumble. And it was like it was a time-honored tradition to do it, and I still love it to this day. Like I said, it's just so bad, and you have to just shut your brain out. I think it probably, if you've already seen it and you know what's coming, probably best if you're doing it, as Doc says, with an adult beverage or two. Like if you've never smoked pot, now's the time, right?
Call Maddie Marijuana.
Yeah, where's Maddie, Mr. Marijuana, as I like to say. So, all right. Well, WCW is on a downward spiral. The movie doesn't do anything to their numbers. It doesn't help them in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it's just another loss in that column there for them. It does not do well. But it does have its cult following now. But WCW continues to sink, and Eric Bischoff tries to purchase WCW with a whole investment group that he puts together. And unfortunately, there's a lot that goes into this. Who Killed WCW is a really good documentary series. There's a lot of theories. Nothing proven, but a lot of theories of what could have happened. I know originally it was basically them saying that they were ready to do it and they backed out because Turner wasn't going to give them the television time. And I know this is a different time, but I remember thinking but there's a lot of networks out there. Like you couldn't negotiate with another network. I do recall if ECW can get on television, you'd think WCW could have found a new home somewhere. But, what do I know about that business? But Vince McMahon buys WCW but does not buy and include the Time Warner contracts. And so we all know the invasion angle that did not pan out as planned was missing some major WCW players. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, right? Sting wasn't there. The guys who did come over, Booker T got a chance to come over as Booker T, which works there. But then let's talk about poor Dallas and his inability to say no here. And if anybody ever had a right to say no, this would have been it for Dallas, right? Vince brings him in, says, all right, we're going to make you the stalker. And I know that there's other pieces of this puzzle like Bruce Pritchard and some other guys. We're going to make you the stalker of The Undertaker's wife. Now, no offense to Sarah at the time, but no. Dallas was like, have you seen my wife? Like, why would I? Everyone knows this is. Why would I stalk Undertaker's wife? But Dallas took a risk. He took a chance. Instead of, at his age, sitting on the sidelines and waiting out his contract, he was going to take a chance that a lot of guys, who else would do something like this, to get to WWE, to try to be a star for WWE, get a chance to wrestle at WrestleMania, not just drive a pink Cadillac. And I want to hear from you guys of what you think about, are you surprised now knowing what you know about Dallas that he did this, that he took that risk with WWE? George, I want to start with you. What do you, now that you know Dallas probably better than any of us here, because you've met with him several times, talked with him multitudes of times. Does it surprise you that Dallas makes those kinds of decisions like that.
All right. So that's what I was waiting for you to get to, is this type of stuff. All right. So uh, I've talked to Dallas about this personally, like personally about this.
Yeah.
And he said that the reason he didn't see he if he could go back over again, he would have said no, and he would have said, call me when you're ready to do People's Champ versus People's Champ.
Right.
That's what he wanted to do. However, he took the information of learning how to when to walk away, which he should have done there. He took that to heart, and he learned from the stalker gimmick, and that's how he got DDPYoga to skyrocket to the moon, which we'll get to later, I'm sure.
Right.
But he was able to tell. God, I'm drawing a blank here. God, what was that show that he went on?
Oh, the Shark Tank.
Thank you. That was it. When he went on Shark Tank, they didn't want to do what he wanted to do, basically, whatever. And he told them no, and they ended up coming back to him and giving in. So he learned from that. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But for Dallas to be able to get to the show meant the world to him at the time.
Right.
So he was willing to eat crow and do whatever it took, because in his mind, he figured, I'll do what they need me to do at the beginning, and then eventually I'll evolve back into my WCW persona or a version of it and go from there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I don't know how far you want to go into this, but yeah, he did get to wrestle with WCW, and then later on, he took well, do you want to get into that now, his injury, or in WWE?
No, not yet.
All right. So, well, then I'll wait. I'll stop there. Then.
Okay. Benny, your thoughts about Dallas going in to WWE and would you have made the same decision if you were Dallas at his age going in? Would you have just been like, look, my goal was just to get here. If I wait, I might miss my opportunity. Benny, what do you think you would have thought in that moment?
I would have done exactly what he did, because the reality is the guy was 45 years old.
Right.
And how many wrestlers out there at that time were 45 years old that were not named Ric Flair? You have at that age, you have a very limited shelf life. You might you risk injury. I think he did exactly what he should have done. And again, he tried to make the best of a very bad situation. I mean, shame on them for saddling him with that gimmick, especially with a wife like Kimberly. But no, in hindsight, maybe he says now, well, I should have walked away. But, at 45, and keep in mind, Randy Savage, I think was he 42 when Vince told him he was too old to work a program with Shawn Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't that, many years before that. So I think he was just looking at the reality. I'm a 45-year-old guy in a company with much younger guys. My time is now. Still John Cena's phrase there, but I gotta make the most of this, and maybe something else. If I do my best with this, maybe it'll lead to something bigger for me.
Yeah, and here's the deal: like everything in hindsight, it always makes more sense in hindsight. Like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. But Benny, I think you're absolutely right here. You think about if this were today in 2026. It's a whole different story. Wrestling into your 40s, if you're a star, is like it's nothing. Everybody, half these guys are in their 40s. I don't know how much time Dallas had on his Time Warner contract, but I'm sure he had some, because I believe he did cut it to go to WWE. But like I said, in hindsight, yeah, it's easy to say I would have said no, but in that moment, at that time, I think you can't really fault Dallas for it. I think the fault lies with WWE in how they presented him. Doc, I have a specific question for you about this. So, in your opinion, Doc, do you think that WWE's failure with Dallas was more to do with them not understanding what they had with DDP, or was this just another middle finger to WCW?
Yeah, I think this was a middle finger to WCW. I think Vince McMahon's ego is pretty much well on display with the invasion angle, how he handled most of the WCW wrestlers for years and years and years. You look at how they handled Dallas. You look at how they handled Booker T. Goldberg, one of the few guys where they tried to port the gimmick over. But even Sting, when Sting comes in, almost 20 years after the Monday Night Wars,
Right.
they still want to bury WCW and show WWF is the way to go. I killed my competition. I really think it's Vince's ego just run out of control. Let's bury all these WCW guys. How could you not know what you have with the Diamond Dallas Page? How could you not know what you have with the Booker T? And these guys ultimately were able to rise past the horrible bookings that they were given. And able to make something out of things like we'll get on to later with Dallas with his, kind of motivational speaker gimmick, Booker T as King Booker. That just goes to show how they're able to run with this kind of stuff. But the stalker angle, in my mind, is just Vince's ego out of control.
Yeah. And it's funny, if you actually look at the storyline, you can almost look at it as an analogy of what WWE thinks of WCW, right? Because you've got your franchise, right? You could look at The Undertaker as your loyal soldier who probably could have left at any time. Like Eric Bischoff has said, people say, oh, Shawn Michaels could have left at any time. Eric Bischoff has said we didn't want Shawn Michaels. They did not want him in that locker room. But Taker, I think if Taker wanted to go at any time, I think WCW would have welcomed him with open arms. Right? Taker, your loyal guy, and he's got this prize over here. And here comes this lowly WCW guy who's worshiping at the altar of that prize, right? Which is the end result, which is the victory here. I honestly think that's how WWE saw it. This was an analogy of WWE Taker versus WCW, and WCW is worshiping at the altar of what WWE has, right? Ultimate victory. Even though it makes zero sense because, like we said, Sarah versus Kimberly,
there's no contest.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. But Dallas would, as Dallas does, will take something like that, will get through it through work ethic and dedication and discipline, and we come around to Dallas probably being as close to the real Dallas as we'll ever see in WWE, as he became this motivational speaker type persona. And for as ridiculous as it actually was, I found it highly entertaining. I was like, when he would come on screen with that big grin and the new he had the Roman Reigns moment where it's all of a sudden he shows up and you're like, what happened to your teeth?
Veneers, man.
But the thing is because it is actually an extension of who he is, it worked. And was that going to catapult him back into the main event? No, because let's be real, I don't think WWE ever had any intention of putting him in the main event. He could have, and he definitely, as George said, I think People's Champ versus People's Champ could have catapulted Dallas up into that spot, and he could have been a great, upper card talent for them for years. But that didn't happen. But he did get to have his feud with Christian for the European Championship in a match that Dallas really likes at WrestleMania 18. And you can't help but, no matter how bad Dallas's WWE tenure was, you cannot help but get a little bit sentimental about the fact that Dallas appeared in 2 WrestleManias at that point. Actually, at that time, before he would be a legend returning. Once as the driver of the pink Cadillac for Rhythm and Blues, and then he returns 12 years later to the same venue in Toronto, Canada for WrestleMania 18. Again, kind of guys, regardless of what you think of his WWE run, that's got to give you some feel goods a little bit there, doesn't it, Doc? What do you think?
I really love this run. Dallas poking fun at himself. This shows that Dallas can work as a comedic wrestler. Pro wrestling comes out of the carnival circuit, and so it works best as a variety show where you've got heavy drama, where you've got some comedy, and Dallas had me laughing. Christian had me laughing, where Dallas takes Christian under his wing, is trying to make him a better wrestler, trying to make him more positive, and Christian's trying to imitate Dallas's smile with that.
Yeah.
It's just too much. Makes me laugh even now. And they had a really solid match at WrestleMania 18. This was a great build. It's again not the main event thing, but man, what a great build and a great opportunity for Dallas to show a different side. We got to see the monster baby face in WCW. We got to see him work really well as a heel and Ready to Rumble. And now we get to see him do some comedic stuff, which really shows the range that he has, which a lot of pro wrestlers don't have. I don't think Hogan could do a comedy spot the way Dallas is able to do, the way a Kurt Angle is able to do, the way Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock are able to do. So for me, this is why Dallas is one of the greats, because he can do comedy.
I don't know. I thought Mr. America was gold.
Okay. Although, I mean, what does Mr. America have to do with Hulk Hogan and The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin? I meant Mr. America's great. Whatever happened to him?
Right. All right, Benny, give me your thoughts on this.
Well, back then, I was a huge Tony Robbins fan. I still am, actually.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw Dallas do this, I thought, holy crap, Tony Robbins on crack. And I loved every second of it. I thought he worked it to perfection. The comedic motivational speaker. And I will tell you, in the past 24 years, I don't think a week has gone by where I have not said, and that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. So obviously made a lasting impression on me.
Every time I say that's a good thing, quite a bit actually. And every time I do, I always think you forgot the first line. Every time. I'll be like, oh, that's a good thing. And then I'll be like, oh, I forgot to say that's not a bad thing.
You have to hesitate. You have to say that's not a bad thing.
Right. And I remember the first time doing DDPY, and you're doing, I believe it's Below the Belt, if I'm not mistaken. And he says, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. See what I did there? And I'm like, yeah, I knew the moment you said it. You don't have to say any more. I know exactly where you're going with that. It's one of those things that helps you get hooked on DDPY when you get all of his pro wrestling references as he's going. George, what were your thoughts? What do you remember about the motivational speaker version of Dallas?
I loved it. After he got his teeth done, he had the big smile, and that, and like Benny said, it's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That was his new catchphrase. It was wonderful. And again, as Doc said, it was an extension of who he actually is as a person. Obviously Honestly, if you want my opinion, I feel like that motivational gimmick was just Dallas turned down a little bit because Dallas is actually probably higher than that. I don't know if anyone's seen some of his recent motivational stuff. Dallas is kind of amped up when it comes to this. But it was wonderful, and Dallas can work, right? Period, right? In that ring, he's probably one of the best still to this day. And so he can work in the ring, and then like you guys were saying earlier, he can be a huge baby face, he can be a huge heel, he can be a comedic wrestler. This was what proved it. He's the overall package, right? And there's very few people in the business that can say that. Like you guys named some earlier, Austin can do it, The Rock can do it, some others, but Dallas is up in that, right? That's why he's always on my Mount Rushmore, right? Like. And it has nothing to do with DDPY. It has to do with just him as a professional wrestler. Right. He deserves to be on there, and I think he gets overlooked a lot for everyone's new favorite that came out, after every new generation. But Dallas has a claim to be up there.
So between WrestleManias 17 and 18, this is when the whole invasion angle takes off. They're trying to create this recreate WCW versus WWE, but they're doing it with a lot of C-level WCW stars, very few actual stars. Booker T, Dallas do make their way over, but it just doesn't click. And The Rock is not playing a huge role throughout WWE in this particular time period. You've got The Rock going out and doing other things. He's starting to get out into Hollywood, and I believe this was during the time when he goes out to do The Mummy, and you got the Scorpion King and all that stuff that he starts getting involved in. And when he does make his major move, it's before WrestleMania 18, and it's to challenge Hogan. So you've got the icon versus icon. Stone Cold goes after Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. I would like to see some fantasy booking here from you guys. All right? I don't know if any of us could honestly say you would want to change WrestleMania 18's Rock versus Hogan. It stands out as an iconic moment in WrestleMania history, that match. All right, so let's take that off the board. Let's take Hogan and Rock off the board here. So if you were fantasy booking WrestleMania 18 and the build to that for Dallas, how do you build Dallas, and what is the dream match you would have preferred to see him in at WrestleMania 18? George, let's start with you. What do you think?
So no People's Champ versus People's Champ, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I can't take that match away because it's just too good and too iconic of a memory.
I would have built him back up as his WCW gimmick. I would have taken some time to rebuild his, like some kind of trigger would have went off to build him back that gimmick, and I would put him against Austin.
DDP versus Austin would have been great.
Because when people don't know how much people do know this, but Austin and DDP used to be roommates. They're really close friends, and they both can work. And I'm sure they both would have made each other look like $1 million, just period, right? So, and what the storyline would have been, I couldn't tell you, but those two can work. So they could have turned anything into magic, especially because then they would have wanted to. Like Austin really didn't want to work with Scott Hall. It was kind of beneath him, to be honest, where Scott was never a world champ, never whatever, and Austin just getting pushed down the card. Whereas with Dallas was a 3-time world champ. They could have done something magical with that, right? So and just I could turn. It could have been part of Austin's heel turn, right? That and then have Dallas be the face. I don't know. Best I got.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. In the chat here it says who's the real. James Weston says who's the real people's champ. I guess the people have spoken on who it was. But did they? Were they not really given a chance to decide? Because at this point, what a lot of guys have to remember is the majority of the audience was strictly just WWE. Towards the end of WCW's run, they had their fans, sure, but WWE's blowing them out of the water. And WWE is now basically in control of the narrative. If you saw Dallas when he started becoming the People's Champion, which was before Rock, I believe.
It was.
Yeah. He started calling himself. Dallas was majorly over. I can't underemphasize this. I mean, he was over. The Diamond Cutter, the Move, and this were over. Huge. It's the same thing. People forget that Goldberg, popularity-wise, was right there with Austin for a while. He really was. And
Dallas has told me this story, and I think he's told it in other places too. He was after the Big Show had left WCW and was in WWF.
Yeah,
he went to visit him backstage, and at a WWF event. Obviously, they weren't on TV or anything like that. I think it was like a house show or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And Rock was in the back in the shower, and Dallas took his phone out of him and they end up having this little like mini like People's Champ versus People's Champ thing where Dallas ends up on the top of it at the end, you know, with the promo they cut on each other. So you know, again, it would have been amazing to get that match. I would have loved that match. But in my opinion, let's look at it this way. And if I tell everyone who wants to argue about the People's Champ versus People's Champ thing, you have one guy who's in Hollywood and one guy who's actually there for the people and takes care of the people and tries to help the people. Who's your real People's Champ?
Right. Well, and think about, too, after WrestleMania 18, as we move forward, Rock, you know, Austin quits for a while. Rock does Austin took his ball and went home promo, but Rock at the same time is still gone a lot. And by the time we get to 19, Rock is a bad guy. People are booing him out of the building because, like you said, he's not there. He's out in Hollywood doing his thing. You know, that's where I think we could have had that whole build to that. And, yeah, we could be telling a whole different story, but the machine was behind Rock.
Yep.
And that's what happens when the machine gets behind one guy and gives the other guy a stalker angle. And
right.
yes, Rock was popular. I'm not denying Rock was popular. But what I'm trying to say is that had WCW properly capitalized on Dallas's popularity, which they did for a short time, we could be telling a different story. It's all hindsight, so it's all just speculation. But you can't deny, in my opinion, the impact of the company that is behind you. All right? Rock's popularity grew with the popularity of WWE. Dallas, unfortunately, grew with WCW and then was saddled with being, again, a loyal soldier for a company that was sinking. And it wasn't his fault that it was sinking. Dallas was still very popular in WCW. But being the top dog or one of the top dogs in a sinking ship doesn't look as good as being the top dog in the one that actually reaches the destination, right? So it's I think in my opinion, the company has a lot to do with that. But
if Brock had gone to WCW, we probably would have gotten the match, and Dallas definitely would have beaten him. But again, I'll reiterate my point. If you go look at it right now, current day time frame, who's the People's Champ? Who takes care of the people and who's just in Hollywood?
Right.
I'll leave it at that.
Right. Let's see. I don't know, man. Rock was pretty popular. I don't think the majority would have picked DDP. A few would have, but 8, maybe even 9 of 10 would have chosen Rock. I guess I wouldn't have put a company that tried to put me out of business over my own brand. Okay, so James, you're kind of just you're circling the pond here. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying WWE should have put Dallas in that position because this is WWE. This is a whole nother thing. Dallas is a top dog from a sinking ship. All right? WWE is going to do what they're going to do. To the victor go the spoils. I'm saying had the roles been reversed, it's the company matters. All right? What if WCW had won the Monday Night Wars? We would be talking about Dallas as being the people's champ. What if WCW, everybody from WWE came in and they gave them the WWE treatment, made The Rock Dallas's stalker, made Undertaker Dallas's stalker, and just trashed WWE from there on out? We would be telling a different story. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying that DDP was going to come in at 45 and WWE was going to go, okay, you're the man now. Here, you're at the top of the mountain. That was never going to happen. All right? So, anyway.
The way I look at it is that if Dallas was going to be, if they were going to do that People's Champ versus People's Champ thing, I agree with what you said. Once The Rock was heel and was on his way out, that would have been the perfect time because then they could have basically been like, okay, Dallas has been here for a couple of years now. We're going to make him back to his People's Champions gimmick, and we're going to give him the People's Champ title because The Rock's on his way out to go to Hollywood.
Right.
So it would have made perfect sense.
All right, I want to get our other guests here back involved here. Let's go back to our original question. If you could fantasy book Dallas from his return to, or from his debut in WWE to WrestleMania 18, how would you have booked Dallas? And what would have been your dream match had it without Rock or Hogan being involved? Let's go to Benny. I want to see what Benny has to say on this one.
I 100% agree with George. The minute you asked that question, the first name that came to mind was Stone Cold. If you could have let Dallas be Dallas, I mean, the promos those two guys could have exchanged, it would have been money. And I don't know what the hook would be. Maybe, the Diamond Cutter and the Stunner are somewhat similar. And, DDP was using the Diamond Cutter first. Maybe you could use that as, one of the hooks, like Stone Cold, you ripped off my my hold or my finishing maneuver, something like that. But I think it would have been an epic program.
I agree. I think here's what they do, Doc. Here's what they do. They bring in the Ready to Rumble Dallas. Ready to Rumble Dallas against Austin in that big giant 3-cage monstrosity.
No. But
I've
said it before. I've said it before on the show. I wanted to see the Stunner versus the Diamond Cutter. I wanted to see Dallas versus Austin. But this is how I would book it.
All right.
You've got the nightclub owner, and you've got the alcoholic beer drinker.
There you go.
Team them up, and then let that tag team dissolve. You've Dallas. He's throwing up the Diamond Cutter. Stone Cold's throwing up the Stone Cold Salute. Let Dallas start going into the crowd, getting that People's Champ energy going again, and let Stone Cold Steve Austin get envious of that. He used to be the top guy. He used to be the guy that the people were emulating, but now they're kind of throwing up the Diamond Cutter a little more than the middle finger. Maybe they're wearing the DDP shirt more than they're wearing Austin 316. I think that story is a lot more interesting. These two guys are buddies. They go out, they have a lot of fun, they drink some beers, but all of a sudden one's getting a little more popular than the other. One's falling into the booze a little more than the other. I think that would be a very interesting story, and that's something I would want to see.
I agree. I think that would have been a lot better, a lot more entertaining than what felt like, and this is no offense to Scott Hall or Kevin Nash, but what Austin got at WrestleMania 18 felt like a consolation prize. Because I think most of us, let's be honest, but how many of you guys actually thought the dream match was going to be Rock and Hogan first over Austin and Hogan? Like, did anybody think that? Oh, so George, you did? Waiting for George to unmute himself for a second.
Yeah.
So you
100%.
Oh,
We were
okay.
gonna get Hogan versus Stone Cold because it made the most sense. You're the two biggest stars from the two biggest companies, and they're both. And Hogan's the former the top guy at WWF. It made sense for them to go and clash. Rock was the one after Austin and was the one being built up. I didn't think it should have been that. I think it should have been Austin
Oh,
versus
okay.
Hogan.
So you agreed with what that was my point. Like, did you think
Right.
Rock was going to get that nod first?
No.
Yeah.
I thought it should have been Hogan. That should have been Austin, and then Austin later on doing it, what he did for the Rock to the Rock, and then the Rock passing, so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't know. The Rock thing was great. That makes it that moment it goes down in history, but it should have been Austin in that role.
Right. I think Vince looked at Rock as the future mainstream star. As Hogan or Austin didn't necessarily have aspirations of being a star in Hollywood and stuff like that, but Rock was on his way. And so from that standpoint, that made a lot of sense for Rock Hogan. And it worked out beautifully for all of us because we got the match we got the crowd bringing, getting fully behind Hogan in that matchup that just was amazing. But I agree. I think that had you run a storyline like that where it's Dallas and Austin, it doesn't feel like a consolation prize anymore. It doesn't feel like a, hey, thanks for carrying the company for a couple years. Here's Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, which again, no offense to them, but they weren't. I don't think they were WrestleMania worthy opponents for Stone Cold at that time. All right, I could be wrong, I could be dead wrong, but that's how I feels, and I gots to keeps it reals. Yeah, I just talk like that. We all know Dallas gets injured in WWE. George, I think you wanted to talk about that a little bit, which of course would eventually lead us to where Dallas is today. Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about that injury that Dallas suffered during his match with Hardcore Holly.
So Dallas went to give him a superplex off the top rope. Ended up Dallas ended up landing on his neck, basically hard fused his vertebrae together. And but apparently at the same token, because the way Dallas flipped over so hard that Dallas actually went over there and his foot and kicked Bob Holly in the Family Jewels. That person not usually talked about. But I got this from Dallas himself, so I know it's a legit thing. He didn't even know to it, so we got to the back. But but yeah, so Dallas ended up hurting his neck, and he decided at that point it was time to step away, as he, his age, and he was like really hurt, and everything they had done with him was not what he had wanted. So he stepped away for a while to try to get healed up. And I'll let you go from there because I don't know where you're going after this. But I know where the story goes, but I don't know where you're headed next. So
Right.
I'll wait a minute.
Well, we'll get to the majority of the DDPY stuff in a bit. I want to kind of close out Dallas's WWE career here. Now we know that Dallas would go on and make appearances in TNA. He had his final match in AEW. Those things we're not really going to cover very much today. They were kind of just drops in the hat here. But basically, during this time, after leaving WWE, he was mainly now developing DDPYoga, DDPY, and using that to rehabilitate himself. And then other people start wanting to get involved in this, and people are asking him, oh, what's this thing you're doing here? And it starts to grow and grow and grow. And I always thought Dallas deserved a spot in the Hall of Fame. And it was always surprising to me how long it took for that to happen. But doesn't it feel kind of like, again, fate? Like, I don't think anything happens by chance. That Dallas goes in the year after, I believe it's the year after, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake the Snake and Scott Hall get inducted. I think it was the year after.
It has a lot to do with what Dallas did outside of the company and what got him to unfortunately, which is it's kind of unfortunate, but true. But yeah, when Dallas left when he left WWE and when he finished TNA stuff, he started working on making YRG, which later evolved into DDPYoga, which is now known as DDPY.
Right.
Fun fact, the reason why it got rebranded is to DDPYoga is because everyone kept calling it DDP's Yoga, and he got tired of it, but eventually he eventually went with it for the brand and put his name on it. And if you want to have a lot more information about all this, I recommend everyone checking out the documentary called Relentless.
Yeah.
It'll have a lot more information on all this. We don't have time today to cover all that, unfortunately, but it explains a lot of the struggles Dallas went through and how he got to making the company and all that. So
right. So 2017, DDP is finally inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And again, like we said, I think a lot of that came from his work with Jake the Snake Roberts and Scott Hall. Those two guys are welcomed home. And if you're going to welcome those two guys home, you better give a spot to the guy that made that all possible in DDP. WWE also notes some of his later appearances, including Raw in 2012, Raw 1000, Old School Raw in 2014, the 2015 Royal Rumble, which I'll get to, and WrestleMania 32's Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
I was there for that.
Nice. So the legacy points for Dallas, of course, he's a late blooming success story, one of WCW's most organic fan favorites. This wasn't a manufactured product. This wasn't somebody that was forced down people's throats. He became one of the biggest stars in WCW organically. He had one of wrestling's most protected and best finishers in the Diamond Cutter, and he was a wrestler who turned charisma, persistence, and self-branding into a Hall of Fame career. Before we wrap up the WWE, the pro wrestling, WCW side of things, let's start with Benny. I have a question for you. What do you think is DDP's biggest contribution to pro wrestling?
I think it's the fact that, he got started at an age where most guys, 36 years old, most guys have been wrestling for 15 to 20 years. Their bodies are already broken down, ready to call it a career. I mean, this is back then. Now it's a little bit different, but he established the fact that it's never too late to start.
Yep. All right. Doc, what do you think is DDP's biggest contribution to pro wrestling?
I think, like the Diamond Cutter, it shows that a star can come out of nowhere. The most unlikely person can rise to the top of a company, can be a fan favorite. Most companies are going to put their money behind a young man. Like Benny said, this guy starts out at 35 years old. He's an old dude for back then, and comes out of nowhere. Even though it's like he says with DDPYoga, it was an overnight success, 8 years in the making.
Right.
He was kind of like that, like all of a sudden, hey, who's this Diamond Dallas Page guy? Yeah, he's been working the mid card, but all of a sudden he comes out and he's feuding with the NWO, which was the draw back then. Like the reason WCW won the ratings war 86 weeks in a row was because of the NWO and their feuds with guys like Diamond Dallas Page and Sting. He comes out of nowhere like the Diamond Cutter.
The Diamond Cutter, it was the Yes Movement before the Yes Movement. Right? It was something you would see an entire arena full of people throwing up the Diamond Cutter. It was amazing. Again, like I said, if you weren't around to see it, it's hard to understand how over he actually was. And you could say the same thing as we go along. you can see WWE kind of, distancing themselves from that Daniel Bryan whole, moment as he stays over in AEW. 10 years from now, how many people are going to really understand how amazing the Yes Movement was back at WrestleMania 30, right? It doesn't feel like we're that moved on from that moment, but we're far enough along where it feels like it was an eternity ago, and a lot of people don't remember it. So Diamond Cutter's even way further back than that. So, but it was very, very cool. George, how about you? What do you think is DDP's biggest contribution to pro wrestling?
It goes back to what everyone else was saying, is that you're never too old to take a chance on yourself. You're never too old to take a shot. He proved that age is just a number, that if you're willing to put the work in, you can accomplish anything. At the end of the day, his character and his stories influenced me so much as a teenager, more than I even realized it at the time. So a little bit with me, that because I've never been on the your DDPYoga highlight thing, but he so I came from basically like just a single mom, and as I didn't have a father figure growing up, so Dallas ended up being that without me realizing it via TV, just learning from his character. Like when Macho Man was spray painting Kimberly and all the other stuff like that, and Dallas was there fighting for his wife, I learned as a kid, you're supposed to defend your significant other. This is how a man's supposed to act, right? So I learned a lot from Dallas that way. And before I even realized it, it just came to me, last, like 5 or 10 years. I didn't realize that, right? Like the stuff that he did had such a profound impact on me as a person from his character. So Dallas was so good at playing a character that it rubbed off on me in a subconscious level of, this is how a man's supposed to, take care of his family. So Dallas's ability to reach people, I guess, would be my big thing. He has the ability to just, I don't know, we reach in there and just get you at like a soul level. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that there are certain guys that stick with you and have that lasting impact. And I've said this a lot, and I'm going to start to segue here into the DDPY stuff, and me and everything that happened in my life led me to pro wrestling. And pro wrestling became my escape from the harsh realities that life was throwing my way when I was growing up. Now, I'm not saying my life was terrible and it was bad all the time, but those of you that know my story, you know that part of it was very, very bad. And pro wrestling gave me a way to believe that there was hope out there. Because what happened in pro wrestling when I was growing up, it was Hulk Hogan overcoming all these giants and monsters and bad guys and villains, and it made me think, okay, I might be going through some stuff, but at the end of the day, good wins, right? That's what pro wrestling taught me. And then I got into it more and more, and I realized there was a lot more to pro wrestling than just black and white, and I just became a massive fan. Then Dallas came into my world, and I was not a WCW guy. I was a WWE guy through and through. I bled WWE. But my roommate in college was a WCW guy. And while we would watch Raw, he would tape Nitro, and he would constantly talk, and he wouldn't shut up about DDP. Till I finally caved in, and I'm like, fine, who the hell is this DDP guy? And he was teaming with Karl Malone, and he was doing all these cool things. He was headlining against Hogan. I thought, well, he's got to be a big deal. He's headlining against Hulk Hogan, right? I even bought the Diamond Dallas Page Feel the Bang VHS just so that I could learn more about who this guy was. And I just got hooked. I got hooked on the evolution of the character. I got hooked on the diamond cutter. I got hooked on all that stuff. And it stayed with me. When Dallas came to WWE, it literally kind of almost destroyed the brand of Diamond Dallas Page. But it didn't destroy the memory that I had of how I felt watching that VHS tape and every now and then catching WCW Nitro and seeing Dallas on the screen. And at the 2015 Royal Rumble, Dallas makes his appearance, and he's wearing a tank top that says DDPYoga on it. And I'll never forget the moment, because I turned to my buddy and I said, "What in the world is DDPYoga?" And this was his response. "Oh, it's just this thing he does." That was it. That was the entire interaction about it.
Meanwhile, at that point, I'd already been doing the program for 3 years.
Right. Well, 3 years later, or 4 years later, I'm in and out of the hospital. I'm going through. My father had died. I had lost one job. I got another one, but I was miserable. I was very unhappy, and I remembered that Royal Rumble, and I thought about Dallas, and all I could see was that DDPYoga going across his tank top. And I looked it up, and of course, what video popped up? Arthur Borman. Arthur Borman popped up. And I remember watching that and going like that didn't convince me. That didn't convince me to go with it. I kept looking at other things. And then I kept coming back to DDPY, and I saw other success stories, and I started to see some other people that were taking their success from the program and doing some pretty cool things. And this was before the challenges and all the stuff were exploding and everything. So I bought the DVDs, and I failed to do the program multiple times. I started and stopped probably twice in 2019, 2 or 3 times in 2020. It wasn't until 2021 when it finally happened for me. It's why I always talk about, it's never too late. Yesterday, we did a show. Your best years are not behind you, right? You can change. You can make that happen today to make today amazing and make tomorrow even better. And I finally got that through my head in 2021 with the help of my awesome wife, Kim, by my side, supporting me every step of the way, just like she does now with these shows, with my music, with my books. She supports me like nobody else in my life does. And through the DDPY program, I took control of my life. It wasn't just about losing weight. You can lose weight on a million different programs. It was about owning my life. That's what DDPY did for me. And I became a 2021 DDPY Positively Unstoppable Challenge champion. That was not I didn't win that. I want to make that very clear to a lot of people. That belt right there is about as legitimate as that belt. I didn't defeat somebody for that belt. This was DDP's way of saying, dude, way to take control of your life. I'm proud of you. Here. It was a gift. It was a responsibility to me. Every time I look at that belt, I'm reminded of who I am, how far I've come, and how far I'm yet to go. That, in a nutshell, is my DDPY story and why this part of Dallas's career is so immensely important, and why I want to make sure we encapsulate that as well as we can. Because, and I'll give you a little bit of information here, DDPYoga's official site says DDP originally developed the program for athletes like himself who suffered years of injury from high-impact sports. The site specifically notes that after rupturing his L4 and L5 spinal disc during his wrestling career, he tried yoga while trying to keep his dream alive. DDPY's current official site describes the program as built around fitness, nutrition, mindset, community, and owning your life, with the app offering over 300 and probably almost over 400 at this point, workouts, meal plans, and inspiration from the community and DDP himself. And now we have programs like Fast Track Coaching, which I am one. We've got Transformation University, which we have a multi-time graduate here in George Fenmore. We've got Beast Mode, which is a 90-day program that you can do to take your fitness to the next level. So it's incredible. DDPY has introduced people to BFR training through power cuffs and jack straps. Just absolutely life-changing.
Instructor.
What's that?
We have instructors.
That's right.
That we're all. Every instructor are at some point informed with a transformation through DDPY.
Yeah.
Every single one, including the director of certification.
Right. And that's George. How many certifications do you have at this point?
I'm on level 2.
You have 2. I'm still currently level 1, working on level 2. But DDP's wrestling story is about proving people wrong. DDPY is about helping people prove themselves right. If you say you can or you say you can't, either way, you're right. We want you to say you can every single time. And if you can't, it's just yet, right? That's the big word, yet. All right. So I've told you my story. I know, Benny, say hello real quick and pop up on the screen for me.
Hello.
So, Benny, I know that you don't have a huge, major transformation through DDPY's story, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on Dallas and what he's done with the DDPY program. I know you've done the program. You've done DDPY workouts. So I want to hear from you first about your experience with DDPY.
Yeah, I mean, I actually started lifting weights in 1988 when I was 33, and I had heard about the DDPY in the early like 2013, 2014, but it was my son that, and so I mean, I maintained a very healthy lifestyle for years and years, which included going to the gym, lifting weights, and proper nutrition. In fact, at one point, I had a certification in personal training, so I wasn't a stranger to the lifestyle, but what did it for me was, I guess it was early 2018. My son Dan sent me I'm sure it was around before then, was the Arthur Borman video, and I thought, holy crap, this is absolutely amazing. This man was, literally, destined for life in a wheelchair with no quality of life, and look at him now. And that was enough to at least, say to myself, I got to try this. And so I started, I think it was around summer of 2018. And the minute I got into it, I left the gym behind for a while. And I was doing about 5 or 6 workouts a day. I think from January through June of 2019, the lowest I placed on the app was like number 9. I got as high as number 3. I thought to myself, well, I'm going to lose a lot of muscle mass, because I was, at one point I was squatting 500 pounds, leg pressing 1,200 pounds.
Right.
And I thought, I'm going to shrink. And I really didn't. And in fact, I never achieved such definition and cuts as when I was doing DDPY on a regular basis, even without going to the gym. So I can't speak highly enough about it.
I mean, it's pretty incredible. Let me get back to the spot here. When you hear stories like that, like a lot of people, again, they miscategorize it as just being yoga, right? And it's not. It is not it's not at all. Well, not at all, but A lot of people have those same fears that you talked about, Benny, where it's like, well, if I do this, I'm not going to be able to, maintain strength. I'm not going to be able to, or increase strength or muscle density or muscle that, and it's real. And like you said, it's not true. It is
I lost nothing. In fact, when I went back to the gym and started lifting, I actually had gained some strength.
Right.
And I gained and even if I had lost a little bit of strength, I had so much more flexibility that it actually enhanced my workouts tremendously.
Yep. DDPY and the Power Cups with BFR, I give it so much credit for my recovery from shoulder replacement. Without DDPY and everything I learned from DDPY and all of that, and the change in mindset that I have and my work ethic is such that I was able to make a pretty dramatic recovery. And again, with the support of my wife behind me, who was there telling me, like, look, worst case scenario, you're out of pain. Best case scenario, you're going to do exactly what you've been doing, and you're going to crush this, and you're going to come back better than you were before. And that's absolutely true. I'm stronger today.
It's not just the workouts, though. I mean, when you join DDPY, now you're part of a family. You're part of a community.
Right.
Not only are you getting like these hundreds of workouts to choose from, but there's so many good recipes on that site. I mean, it's amazing, and they're all healthy, and there's a treasure trove of inspiration and motivation. With his motivational Mondays and other motivation on there. It's not just workouts. It's like a whole lifestyle that comes with it.
Yep. Doc, let's hear your DDPY story for our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, I actually came upon DDPY in a very weird way. I was at a particularly dark period in my life, loss after loss after loss after loss, and I'm starting to get into wrestling again, and I'm watching YouTube, and I see a short clip of Jake the Snake on Joe Rogan, and the headline that grabbed me was Andre the Giant defecating on Bad News Brown or something in the ring, and I was like, well, I got to hear this story. And Jake has always been very special to me because he looked a lot like my dad, and they both fought a lot of the same demons. My dad lost to them. Jake won. And so I'm listening to Jake tell about his recovery story, and he's talking about DDP, and he's like, oh, you got to have DDP on. And so I looked to see if Joe had DDP on his show, and I listened to DDP's show, and he's talking about DDPYoga, and I was like, oh man, I should get into that. Unfortunately, I misheard what he said. He was like, it's like $80 a year, and I thought he said $80 a month, and I was like, I ain't got money for that.
Right.
But then COVID happens, and total lockdown here in California. Like,
yeah,
you could go to Walmart, the strip club for some reason, and that's it. Couldn't go to church. I'm cut off from my faith community. I'm cut off from my friends, cut off from my family. Lady Haywood and I had just started dating, so we were like, we'll break the rules for each other. But I've got nothing, and so I'm like, I was literally on one of my last paychecks, and I was like, you know what? I've got to have something. I'll at least try this DDPY for a month. He was doing a couple free workouts on Facebook. He was saying it's 7 days free. I'll give it a try. And I download the app. And first off, I was like, oh, it's $80 for the year. All right, I can do this. And like Benny said, you're connected to the community, the DDPY Facebook community. You are given these motivational stuff, which I really needed at that time in my life. I didn't need a huge body transformation. I was a little bit overweight, but it wasn't anything that was, I lose 20 pounds. I'm not going to be winning any grand champion stuff. So for me, it was more about the mental health and the mental transformation. that DDPY gave to me. And then circumstances happened where I didn't have to worry about money anymore. And I was like, oh man, if only I could get out to Georgia to the performance center. But stuff was still pretty much locked down. But then Dallas announced the retreat down in Mexico. And so I went down to my first DDPY retreat, got to hang out with Dallas. And meeting the man, and I've done 2 retreats down in Mexico with him, and it changed your life. It changed my life. I was like, gosh, I need to do something now with this gift I've been given. I want to give back to the community. And one way I decided to do that was through pro wrestling, and I did that with PCW for 5 years. I'm taking a step back now to kind of work on myself again, get the old Diamond Doc where he needs to be. But it was more than just a physical transformation. And again, like Benny said, and George said, it's a lifestyle. It's something that I was able to fit in with my faith walk, because a lot of the stuff that Dallas talks about, not explicitly, but implicitly are kind of gospel values. And, you can't love others as you love yourself if you don't love yourself. And one of the things DDPY taught me to do was love myself and take care of myself in a very unselfish way, so that I can give to the people around me, so that I can give to my kids, so I can give to Lady Haywood, so I can give back to the community, which was something I wasn't able to do as much before, because I was in such a dark place that I didn't love myself.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. It's great to hear these stories. My favorite part about all of them, though, is you guys have probably seen whenever I talk to people about stuff, I do love to hear how they got involved, what it did to get them where they are. My favorite thing, right, is what have you done with it, right? What have you done since your success, since you found DDPY? So, my journey to becoming a DDPY champ can influence people to start the program. George, your story can help people start the program. But to me, what keeps you coming back for more is your success and getting to see what other people do with theirs, right? Doc, to see what you've done, like to see you encouraging pro wrestlers, to do the program, watching you, seeing your pictures in the gym where you're flexing and all that stuff, and going out, being on, even though it might not be DDPY related necessarily, but going out and living your life, going on The Price is Right, right? And having fun, watching you live your life like that. That's going to make me be like, oh man, that's the kind of thing I want to do. I got to keep moving forward, right? My thing was I jumped out of an airplane, went skydiving. That was my way of saying I'm going to live my life. I went on Let's Make a Deal. I've taken every opportunity to live my life to the fullest. And everywhere I go, there's something on my person that is DDPY related. Whether it's my token that Scott French made that was gifted to be my Stephanie Kelly, a DDPY shirt. I've got my Team Relentless, which is our 2021 champs group. I got a football jersey made of that. I've got my tattoo, right? And on my chest is a DDPY logo on inside the bat symbol, because that's where it belongs. It's showing people what you can do afterwards, and just letting them know that life is amazing, life is worth living, and DDPY can really help you achieve that. George, your turn, brother. You have the longest history with DDPY, and you have probably the least amount of time to tell it.
Yeah, I was like, how's it gonna fit my story? And my story's probably gonna take like an hour. But all right, we'll just I'll do what I can here.
Yeah, we can give them the highlights, and then we'll bring you on Warriors Unleashed, and you can just take over that show, because you'll need like the full hour, hour and a half.
Yeah. So the highlights are I was a big Dallas fan. My mom was in the process of dying. She died really young. She was 58 when she finally did pass.
Wow.
So I got to go a little bit for that, just to make it all understand. My mom was a nurse in a nursing home in the 80s, and she contracted MRSA from a patient. Back then, they didn't know that MRSA was antibiotic resistant. They died once they got rid of it. It was gone. It went dormant in her system, came back, and started attacking her feet. And she was a type 1 diabetic. So she started losing digits. Try to keep it as clean as I can here. And eventually, they ended up taking all of them on both feet, and then cutting an Achilles so she could walk, and eventually amputating a leg. And then she was good for a while. That was about 2002 when I graduated high school. And she lost her leg, I'd say, about 2005. And then she was good for about 10 years. And then MRSA kind of came back, and it got a lot worse from there. She ended up losing part of her index finger from out here on her dominant hand. She was right-handed. And then went into her back and did like the movie Backdraft. It went out and then went inside and it exploded. She had a lot of other medical problems. Again, I could go a whole big thing on that, but anyway, so was really depressed. I had hurt my neck at Walmart after my son was born, and basically I was lifting a 50-pound thing of eggs above my head. I was pulling it down, and I probably should have gone on a ladder. This part's on me, but I overstretched like this, and I spazzed out the neck really, really bad, right about here, and I finished my shift, and then the next day I woke up, I couldn't move. And then, Walmart being Walmart, they told me to ignore the pain or find another line of work.
Right.
Eventually gave in and let me see their doctor, and their doctor was saying like, hey, you need more. Their PT was saying I needed more time. Their doctor was like, that's where I got that another line of work from. So I eventually quit. And basically, I went to try to go to school, and that didn't work out because I was in so much pain. I was stuck, basically. So I got hurt to the point where I spazzed out. It was stuck in a shrug position up like this. And then I was overcompensated. They made me work hurt, so the other side spazzed. I was stuck like this from October to April when I get ready to get married to Jenny. And in order for us to get married, Jenny took both her knees, jumped on top and on my shoulders to get him to come down. As you can imagine how much pain I was in.
Yeah.
It made it so that I could get married and put a smile on my face, but I was in chronic pain for the next, I don't know, decade or whatever. I was depressed, wanted to die, and tried to push my family away as much as I could. My big thing at the point wasn't drinking at that time. It was Coke and Hot Pockets and sitting there playing World of Warcraft.
Coca-Cola, right?
Coca-Cola, yeah.
not Coke.
I would disappear into the fantasy world of World of Warcraft for a decade, living on the game 20 hours a day, ignoring my family, ignoring my wife, trying to push everyone away, just trying to escape the pain. And I lived like that for, again, about 10 years. And then around 2000 and let's see here, 2012, I started trying. I went by. I forget what it was. It was early that year was my breaking point. But I went to go see a movie with my best friend, and I just saw my reflection in the glass door, and I had boobs. I had man boobs, and I had someone before that who had, had like the 6-pack. I had whatever. I was a big wrestling fan. I wanted to be a wrestler when I was a kid, and I was working really hard towards it, and then I lost it. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. And I was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I knew I had to do something. I had to try to get my life back. So I bought myself a total gym, and I started trying to do that. And I lost about 20 pounds, and then I plateaued. And then I saw Dallas on TV. He was talking about, it was 2012, and he was talking about DDPY, and Jericho was talking about DDPY. At the time, it was YRG. He just rebranded it DDPYoga. And so I picked it up. And it it changed my life. I saw the Arthur Borman video, and I was off to the races. I started one day after Jen's birthday, so July 26th, 2012, and from there I had the ups and downs, up and down. My mom was still here, but she was starting. So, hmm, ooh, it's tough. That was gonna be all right. So November of that year, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, my mom went into cardiac arrest, died in my arms, and got resuscitated. That's where this comes from.
Wow.
That was there the next day.
Hmm.
She it was stress. She went into cardiac arrest. She had the death rattle, everything, and she kept saying, "Let me go, let me go, let me go." And I was like, "Mom, I don't have you. I don't have you." I'm panicking. I don't realize she's saying, "Let me die."
Right.
She did got brought back. After that, she had some. She had no air for about 10 minutes. So she had no emotional control. She had short-term memory problems after that. Some dementia signs. It was rough. So my mom was in and out of the hospital for the next 3 years, and I was still doing DDPY. I ended up lost about 100 pounds, and then my mom started getting really it was sicker, and then you see Dallas at that Royal Rumble, right, for the first time. Well, about 20 days before that, my mom died.
Wow.
So I did watch that. My mom died January 9th, 2015. And I sort of downward spiraled from there. Huh. I was still doing DDPY, but it wasn't as much. It wasn't as hard. I started gaining some of the weight back. I went and saw Dallas at that WrestleMania 32, and I had gained so much weight back. I could still do the cool moves. I had the flexibility. I could still do a forearm stand, but I don't know, back over to like 220 again. I was at 300 and gotten myself down to like 200. I gained like about 20 or 40 pounds back. And I saw Dallas at my 10th wedding anniversary on the day um, for his WrestleMania workshop, and then he congratulated Jenny and I, and hyped us up. And then he had to rush out because he had to be at WrestleMania because he had something going on. He couldn't tell us what it was. We were there at Mania, and we got to see Dallas. Right, so that's when he came back with the Andre Battle Royal, and we popped like crazy. And I was still doing my DDPY after that. And I was going up and down, up and down. I started drinking heavily. I was so depressed over everything happened with my mom. And again, there's a lot more that goes into that. But I would have to be on a full show to go into the details on that. But it put me in this deep depression where I was drinking a case or two of Bud Light a day. I was just downing them, and I would wake up near the toilet, just and the next day crawl myself into bed, and then that was like that for months, for about a year and a half, and then November. It was the end of November of 2016. DDPY was coming out with the app, and I decided I was gonna sign up for it and do it, and I started doing it, and oh crap, sorry about that. I had an alarm going off there.
No problem.
So I started doing it at that point, and I was doing the app. It was kicking my butt. Like we went from the YRG videos basically to the 2.0 videos, and it was kicking my tail feathers. And then sometime in December of that year, I saw my reflection. I went and had a heart to heart with myself in the mirror, and I didn't like what I saw. And I go, my mom wouldn't want this. I don't want this. January 1st, I know everyone makes New Year's resolutions. For me, this is different. I said, I'm starting at first. We're gonna fix this. We're gonna stop all this drinking like this. We're gonna get ourselves back on track, and we're gonna go forward. And the rest is history for me. I did that. I got my life back. I lost a bunch of weight. In 2017, I signed up for the instructor program. I was one of the fastest persons to go through the original thing. I was done in 3 months. And then I was off to the races. I ended up becoming all that crazy stuff that everyone knows me for, my DDPY videos. It all started from that one decision. I made the decision that this wasn't going to be me like this anymore, that I was going to fix it. And I did. to me, DDPY is all about that community. That community saved me so much. It was the early community. It's so big now. It's not the same as like it was, but it was so much like a family, and everyone had like friendly competition with each other. You know, Benny was talking about that leaderboard board in that time frame that you talked about, Benny. The reason why you could never get to number one because I held that spot from 2017 until I basically hit that 2.5 million points on the app.
Wow.
I was Cadris. I was Cadris on there, so that was me. I was that number one guy. I held that thing. I did 2 hours of DDPY a day every single day for 3 to 5 years. And in fact, the only thing that stopped that is fun fact. I have this about here, a scar. I helped my son take the trash out, and there was a aluminum can in there. I didn't realize it, and then I had to pull the bag up, and it stabbed you right through there, and we called it the garbage shank. Then I went and did red hardcore immediately, and then I sent, I'm like an idiot. I sent this to Dallas the next day in a text. I'm going, "Hey, any idea how I can mod around this? Worst mistake I ever made in my life." He's calling me. I don't even have speakerphone on. I have the phone out here, and I can hear him screaming at me. I got you. He became dad mode there, and he just read me a new one, and I got grounded from working out, and it that's killed my streak that I had as well. But yeah, I had a long streak. I was ahead of Jennifer Jenner, if that tells you anything, before that went down. Yeah, that retired that. But long story short, I became an L1 instructor, later on an L2 instructor. I've been to 3 retreats. I've been because I hit the 2.5 million, which used to be a reward for the app, I got to stay at DDP's house. I earned it. It was one of the rewards on there, which Dallas has pulled. I was the only one who got to do it from the app. It was supposed to be a gag. You weren't supposed to actually do it. And I achieved it, and it was an impossible goal. And because I did it, Dallas honored it. It was amazing. But going to those retreats, that's where I met Doc Haywood here, and we get to have some fun and probably some things we're never going to discuss of what went down at those retreats.
What happens at the retreat stays at the retreat.
Unless I put it on an episode of Limelight, which I did put some stuff on Limelight.
Oh, there was some crazy stuff that we did there. That was fun, guys. It was so much fun, though. But yeah, I think I probably should like kind of cut it about there. As if I don't want to go too deep into. Like I said, there's a lot. My story is huge, and I could be in it for all day here. But I'm an L2 instructor. I teach classes. I'm open to teach class every single day, but right now I'm teaching Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. But I go by what the clientele needs, right? Right now I have 2 one-on-ones that I'm teaching. I don't really have a spot to do the group type classes unless I'm down at the performance center. Right. I have a workout on the app. I filmed 2 other ones, but they didn't make the cut because I kept over a bad joke. Let's put it that way. But I have a workout up on the app. I've got to teach. In fact, the very first time I got to teach in front of Dallas, Doc was there.
Yeah, at the retreat. I remember that. That was a great session.
Yeah. I'll go over that part and then I'll cut it here because it's getting close on time here. Yeah. So I didn't know I was teaching. Doc can tell you, I had no idea. I was just sitting there doing the workout with everybody else, and Dallas comes up and goes, "So George, if I put you up on stage, you're going to teach a segment for me?" And I'm like, yeah. Of course, I had no idea this was coming, nothing planned, no whatever. He hit me with that on purpose. In fact, he told everyone why, because I would have been in my own head or whatever. And but what Dallas didn't realize is Dallas just showed up late to that class. So we had Dr. Tom Wallet run us through a segment. Paige run us through a segment. Tom do something else. Dallas shows up. Dallas did something. Paige did something. Dallas did something. Paige did something. And I'm looking at the time going, we've already been working out for almost 2 hours. We're in Mexico. We're in a spot where there's like no breeze. Everyone's dying. I'm probably like the fittest person there, and I'm starting to go. And I'm like, if I'm going, what the hell's happened to everybody else here? And Dallas was like, come up and teach a segment. And I'm like, take him home? And he's like, no, teach a segment. And I'm like, they can't handle. No one has anything left. So me reading the room, which is what helped me the most. I think Dallas realized Dallas knew what he was doing. He read the room. I read the room, and I saw where everyone was at. And Doc's over there dying. I can't blame him at that point. I think everyone was dying. Um, I went to a quick stretch thing that I came up with on the top of my head, a stretch thing, and I impressed Dallas so much that it gave me another shot at it. To come back the next day and to teach a full-on segment. I did, and that's how I ended up getting on the app. Was from that thing, but I had no idea what it was. Oh yeah, and to boot, after all that whole session, Doc, I went to Dallas with the weight room and started power cuffs for the very first time. So I had to do another 45 minutes of power cuff with him and Dr. Tom. So I was fried. You remember that session all too well. Oh man.
All right, guys.
But
we got to start wrapping up here. We're 1 minute to 9. I love all of this, right? Every part of it, and we could again that's why I created Warriors Unleashed, so we could have the freedom to talk about this kind of stuff. But it's always great to get that in. It kind of takes me back to the old Positively Pat Sims radio program days when we talked about everything under the sun on that show. But guys, before we wrap things up, I want to give everybody a chance to plug whatever they got going on right now. George, you're on the screen. Go ahead and start with you. What do you got for us? And before we say our final goodbyes.
all right. Okay, guys, I'm saying is I'm a L2 instructor. I'm in Spring Lake, North Carolina, right outside of Fort Bragg. So if you're in the area and you want to hit me up for a class, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me at my email of champion98@hotmail.com. You can reach me on my Facebook. It's George R. Fenmore Jr. You can reach me on Instagram. I think it's at Cadris there. It's the same thing for X and True Social if you have those. I'm not on some of the other ones. Those are about the ones that I have. If you want to take a one-on-one class with me, I do offer one-on-one Zooms. So reach out to me and we can discuss that and go on from there. I hope some of you reach out and we can help you change your life. Till then, guys.
All right. And Doc, what do you got going on? It's your time to plug.
Yeah, I've got 3 albums wherever you stream your music. Villain Season, Dr. Haywood's Heavy Halloween, and of course the season-appropriate Diamond Summer. You can find them on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon. I've also got my coloring book, Heroes of Virtue, a Catholic coloring book of saints, available on Amazon as well. And if you want to find me on social media, check me out on Facebook at Doc Haywood. I'm also on Instagram at Dr. Haywood. So look me up.
All right. There's my copy of Heroes of Virtue right here. It's good stuff, man. I love it. And I have to say, Doc, my favorite album you have, because I'm a sucker for it, is the Halloween one.
That's a fun one. I've got another one coming out that's kind of in the same vein, but not Halloween specific.
Jeez. My pets are going nuts. All right. Benny, the Jet, the man, the myth, the legend. Sir, tell our viewers and listeners all about what you got.
All right. Well, there's no Benny the Jet's show tomorrow because I did my show on Friday afternoon.
Right.
But I will be on next Sunday at 3 doing my Benny the Jet radio show. On Monday, I have True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Playa, and Dangerous Dave at 6 o'clock. And on Wednesday, When It Was Real, my old school wrestling show with Nikita Brezhnikov. I want to go back to Monday. The name of our episode is called Betty Broderick's Vengeance. That goes back to a killing that occurred, I think, in 1988. I believe, Pat, in your neck of the woods in San Diego-ish, that area. I'm not sure the exact. I know it's a big place, but speaking of vengeance, though, I gotta do a quick book report because I finished this book during the week, Vengeance by Positively Pat Sims, and I absolutely love this book. I loved the way the storyline just gradually built up. And I used the analogy to Pat kind of a conundrum when you go to a really good restaurant and you get a fabulous meal, and it's just so damn good that you just want to eat it like nonstop, but at the same time you want to make it last. So you want to, kind of pace yourself, and that's what I found myself doing with this book. I wanted to get through it because it was just so riveting, but at the same time I thought, well, then once you finish reading it, it's all over. So I took a little bit more time than I normally would to read, but it's just a great book. So anybody out there, if you have not gotten it, I highly recommend it.
Well, I appreciate that, Benny. And with that being said, I have some news. I told you guys last night on Warriors Unleashed that I had an announcement for today. So I'll start with this here. So first of all, guys, Vengeance is available right now exclusively on Amazon. You can get it for Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. But the news for Vengeance is that over the last couple of months, I have gotten enough people who thought that Vengeance deserved a follow-up that it got me thinking all week about it. And I believe that I did come up with not just one follow-up, but Vengeance will be a trilogy of books. And so I have begun work on book number 2. I have put the other things that I was working on hold because I am very, very excited about where these characters are going from here. I'm not going to give away anything, but the story of Vengeance has just begun. And I am super excited about where this is going. So that's part 1. Catching Stars, my current album, our first original music album, is available now across all major streaming platforms, including Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora, and more. And news on that front, my next album is currently has started production. So I will be pulling out all of the recording equipment today. We're going to start recording maybe as soon as today or tomorrow, but the next album, hopefully, we're no later than August. And at the same time, we're going to be recording the Positively Pat Sims Positively Christmas album, which will be released sometime around Thanksgiving. So those 2 albums getting put in place, 2 books getting worked on. I'm super excited about the future of all things Positively Pat Sims. And, of course, we're going to be here every single week with At the Movies, Warriors Unleashed, the Positively Pat Sims Show, and Game Night will be returning ASAP. All right? So thank you so much, guys. Make sure you're heading over to positivelypatsims.printful.me if you want to pick up your Positively Pat Sims merch like this hat. We've got T-shirts. We've got all kinds of stuff just for you guys, all redesigned to look really cool, really awesome. So get on over there today and pick up your Positively Pat Sims merch. All right, guys, that's going to do it. We got to wrap up so that everyone can get out there and enjoy their weekend. So remember what we always say on this show. Sims Nation, take it easy. And if it's easy, take it twice. So long, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week.
The lights are dim, but the room still hums with the echoes of laughter and the moments we spun. Every honest word is like a stone in a stream. It rippled, it lingered, it shaped our dream. And if you ever wonder where I'll be, look to the screen, I'll be there, you'll see. Goodbye to the faces that stayed in the glow. Goodbye to the voices I always know. This isn't an And if